morning, good afternoon, good evening. I think that covers everybody. Hope you're all doing well. It's just gone 1 p.m. here in the UK. And I thought we'd do Delphi today. Anxiously awaiting Judge Gull's rulings on the recent set of hearings, 3 days of hearings on various motions. And we're anxiously, those of us following the Delphi case, anxiously awaiting her rulings. I can imagine it's something like deny, 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 deny. However, let's wait that. It should be soon. Should be soon. I mean, she can take her time, but hopefully it's soon. We are edging ever closer to trial. The jury selection for the trial is due to start on October the 15th, and then the trial proper, I believe, will start on October the 18th, I believe. We're not going to see it unless you manage to get a spot in the courtroom. Or Judge Gull changed her mind on no cameras. Audio only would be fine. I'd be happy with audio only. You know, she doesn't want cameras. But anyhow, I thought I'd do Delphi today. And I thought I'd go back to the phone, Libby's phone. It's confused the bejesus out of me. What's going on with Libby's phone? So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to say a few hellos first. So we got Holly from Texas. Hello, Kimberly. Catherine from Oz. It's late in Oz. Well, get to bed or do what I do and stay up half the night and then get tired, very tired in the morning. Who else have we got in? Linda Kay, another one who is very, very late. New Zealand. Susan and Sue. Mickey from Tucson, Arizona. BG OG. Karen. Danny. Another one. Hi from Oz. So it's a good time for you guys down under. Well, not if you're ready to go to bed and you're really tired, it's not. Princess, I don't know, your phone, your clock must be wrong or something. I didn't put, how can you think that it's 2 hours? Anyway, I hope you do catch it, at least some of it. Down under with love, who's early? Heidi, Jackie from sunny South Africa. Holly on vacation. Woo woo. Rexy, Mimi. Who else have we got? CW, good afternoon. And good afternoon to you, Angie Baby, as well. Auntie Ree, good morning, crew. And who else have we got in? Abia, hello, Bama Cat. And Paper Chaser, Flossie, Flicking Bollocks. Good afternoon to you. M. Osland, Melissa Ben, the Royal We, Plant Lady Teresa, Kate, Insta Justice, True Crime and Trials, Shelley Roo, Rebecca, Lisa, Jedi. Are we getting annoyed yet? Are we getting bored yet? Jazz, Naomi Rose, Jazingo. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. All right. So what's inspired me to go back to Libby's phone? Well, I was kind of browsing the Reddit groups. There's various Delphi Reddit groups, and the ones that are very pro-prosecution, I don't tend to read very much of. However, I must have been feeling, I don't know, ill or something, because earlier today I went into one of the Delphi groups that is very, very, very pro-prosecution. I mean, every post is pro-prosecution. And I've never tried to post in there. I don't know whether I get banned or what. Look, I'm not saying that Richard Allen's innocent. I genuinely do not know. This is one of the cases where I genuinely do not know whether... what I feel, actually. Like, I started off from the premise, well, you know, finally, they've made an arrest. Finally, someone is going to be brought to justice for the murders of Abby and Libby. And The PCA, I've seen weaker PCAs, honestly. I mean, it wasn't especially strong, but I have seen worse. And it was a slow creep, a very slow creep for me. And as things have progressed over the last few months, I'm kind of thinking Richard Allen, in my opinion, is more likely factually innocent than factually guilty at this stage. But like I said, I genuinely don't know. I'm waiting for the trial for the full gamut of the evidence to be brought out. Kim, Kindness Cake, thank you so much for the $4.99. Thank you. Very kind. That's right. Hoping it was televised to make my own opinion. Yeah, I'd like to see the evidence. I'd like to see the whole thing rather than it being just journalists and, you know, a handful of people who manage to make it to the courtroom who we then have to rely on. Because, like I said, at the 3 days of hearings, those that were there who, you know, are on YouTube gave very detailed accounts of what went on, but it still is only their words. And I'm not saying that anybody lied at all. I'm not definitely not saying anybody lied, but there might be things that people miss. There might be things that people write down, and you miss the nuance, you miss the context, you miss a whole bunch of stuff having to rely on people's notes. So I was really hoping that we would get to see this trial. And there's still time for her to change her mind. But anyway, I was in one of the very pro-prosecution Delphi groups today, and somebody had posted, hold on a minute, somebody had posted this. Let me just make this a bit bigger. And it's in the Sun. This is from about 3 days ago. And I thought, oh, great. And it's a whole thread about Richard Allen refusing a plea deal. I thought, great. All right, then. Go on, then. I'll start reading. You know, that apparently Richard Allen has snubbed a plea deal to avoid disappointing his family. Now, look, I didn't know that Richard Allen had even been offered a plea deal. But apparently the US Sun seems to think that he might have been offered a plea deal, but he turned it down. Was it his bullet they found? Well, you see, Momo Shark, we don't know, because the science on ballistics in relation to unspent rounds is very contentious. Now, look, a spent round, a bullet that's actually been fired, has markings on it from inside of the barrel as it's being fired, that the individual markings inside the barrel leave like telltale markings, and they can, not in every case, but they can be matched to that particular gun. However, with unspent rounds, it's not been fired, it's just been ejected from the gun, so it doesn't have those markings that are characteristic of when a bullet is fired. Now, look, I'm no expert on this, but because it's not been fired, the science is even more contentious than the contentions that are currently being debated. That even, you know, with the, maybe in the old days, it was perhaps more likely that you're getting very individual markings. But with, you know, things like mass production, you know, guns are not handmade anymore. The science has been contested, even for bullets that have been fired. However, you know, people have been convicted based on, you know, ballistic evidence. But when it's an unspent round, there's no firing to have kind of imprinted those markings from inside of the barrel. So they can say that it's an unspent round from Richard Allen's Sig Sauer, but the defence, I think this trial will come down to the battle of the experts, honestly. And I think the reason why I'm focusing on Libby's phone at the moment is because if it cannot be explained why there was a whole bunch of text messages came in to Libby's phone at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th, if that cannot be explained by anybody, then it literally blows the prosecution's timeline apart, blows it apart. So they can argue about an unspent round. Yeah, it's been cycled through. So it's not been broken Gothel. It's not been fired, though. It's unspent. So it's not been fired. It's just been ejected from the gun. So it doesn't have those markings that it would have had it been fired. So it's just been ejected. Do boxes of bullets have serial numbers? I'm sure they do, but what would that do? Like the box wasn't there, so I don't understand. I don't understand what the box having a serial number would matter, honestly. Very interested in what Rick's phone tells us. Well, we've not heard anything about Rick's phone, have we? This is the thing. Like, all we've heard about Rick's phone is from the PCA and what Rick said in October 2022, like just before he was arrested, that he had his phone, he was using his phone when he was on the trails, and he was, you know, watching his stock ticker on his phone. And then he went on the bridge to the first platform and was watching the fish. So that's all we've heard about Rick's phone. So was Rick's phone pinned to that area? Did it ping in that area? And if so, what time? So, anyway, this is where I started. So I started reading. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, who have we got interviewed here? We've got Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee, the murder sheet. So I thought, okay. All right. So if the US Sun are relying on the murder sheet to tell us that Richard Allen refused a plea deal, then there's perhaps no point reading any further. But anyway, I did read a little bit, and then I found this. And I thought, oh, that's more interesting to me. That's a more interesting article. So I went straight to that article. Here it is. All right. So again, it's in the Sun, and take it for what it is. Don't buy the Sun. But this is from just yesterday. And I thought, oh, interesting. It's interesting that the Sun is talking about Libby's phone. Now, after the hearings, I've avoided all the media about this case because they're getting their information like we are. You know, unless they actually had a reporter in the courtroom, they are getting their information in exactly the same way that we are, from people who were there who are willing to speak to them. And if the US Sun is relying on the murder sheet, who are very pro-prosecution, then I've got a problem. I've got a problem with it. Anyhow, I thought I'll read this article because I am so hung up on Libby's phone. And I think this trial will come down to a battle of the experts. And in my opinion, the defense needs to literally rip apart the timeline. Now, I know they're going for the third-party guilt defense, And, you know, after the memorandum came out, the memorandum for a Franks hearing, which was denied in September, you know, that 136-page document, which was absolutely mind-blowing to me. It was clear that the defence had a very clear theory and one that they wanted to pursue at trial. So, you know, going for a third-party guilt defence. But I don't know what the trial strategy is going to be, whether they're going to use all what they put in the memorandum and then possibly more that, you know, we've not been told yet, or whether they're going to, you know, sideline that a little bit, because it's a very risky strategy. Look at the Karen Reid trial for anybody who followed the Karen Reid trial. Where did Murder Sheet get their info from? They're in the courtroom. They go to the hearings. They're in Indiana, so they go. But they're very one-sided, very biased. Yeah, can I even get to Libby's phone because I can't get past Elvis Fields confessing the details to murders before the girls were even found? I know. I know. And it's those details that make you think, well, the defence should pursue a third-party guilt defence. But it is risky. I mean, look at, like I said, I'm just going to say, look at the Karen Reid trial. I mean, in my opinion, the defence had a way more convincing theory as to what happened to John O'Keefe than the prosecution did. But it does appear that the jury weren't terribly swayed back. Now, obviously, this is just assumption. And if I assume it's true that, you know, is it 5 jurors now who've come forward? It's either 4 or 5 jurors have come forward and said that, you know, after deliberations, many hours of deliberations, they were unanimous on Karen's innocence in relation to count 1 and 3, which was the second-degree murder, and then the third one. Can't remember what the third one was, but anyway. But because they weren't asked to give their verdicts on each individual count, then they kind of didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether to say, and it was just like all ended dead quickly. So that's why some of the jurors went to the defence, and also one juror rang up the prosecutor's office, rang up Adam Lally and left a message on his phone. But it was the manslaughter count that they were undecided on, that they couldn't reach an agreement on. So reading between the lines, it seems that maybe it wasn't so much the third-party guilt defence that swung it for the jury. It was the information about Karen, the information about John, the fact that it doesn't look like Karen intended to kill him, and it doesn't look like, you know, it doesn't look like murder. It doesn't look like she intentionally ran him over. But if they're undecided on the manslaughter, it means at least some of them, maybe the majority of them, believe the prosecution that Karen did hit him, although it wasn't intentional. So it's risky. I thought that, you know, watching the Karen Reid trial and actually, you know, seeing all the evidence being presented, I thought it was very convincing. But it obviously wasn't as convincing to the jury. So in the Delphi case, you know, the theory that the defence want to put forward is, you know, it could be, it sounds incredulous. It was like, no way. You know, when I read through every word on a whole bunch of live streams and discussed it all in detail, and it sounded incredible. So unless that theory can be presented in such a convincing way to the jury, it's a risky strategy. So I don't know what the trial strategy is going to be, but surely the most convincing way would be to counteract the timeline, to find everything that's problematic with the timeline. Because one thing we did hear at the hearings was that Nick McClellan believes that Abby and Libby were murdered between 2:30 and 3:30. Yeah, paper chaser, member for 22 months. Jury selection is going to be very important. Well, jury selection is always important, but absolutely it is. Do I think the prosecution has some bombshell evidence against Richard Allen that hasn't already been disclosed? Good question. People say this, but I'm kind of thinking no at this stage. Because wouldn't they have said it already? I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they've got things up their sleeve. However, the defense has seen the discovery. So unless there's things that Nick hasn't given the defense yet, which, given his track record, could be possible. Yeah, and the confessions that Rick made, you know, that I only got partway through this article, so I don't know whether the US Sun actually did address it, but Rick's confessions, you know, this idea that Rick, in his confession, said things that only the killer would know. Well, what are those things that only the killer would know? Because Elvis Fields said things that only the killer would know. But Elvis Fields isn't awaiting trial. So what are the things that Rick said? Because we weren't told. One thing we were told was that Rick had said that he murdered the girls with a box cutter. But we also heard from one witness that the blade had a serrated edge. Well, what box cutter have you ever seen that has a serrated edge? I mean, maybe there are box cutters, you know, industrial strength box cutters that do have serrated edges. But when I think of box cutter, I think of a Stanley knife, which has got like it's only got a small blade. Yes, you could hurt somebody, you could disfigure somebody, but you'd struggle to kill somebody unless you stab them right in the throat. You're going to really struggle to kill them with a box cutter. I mean, you absolutely could, but it's not a great weapon to use to murder two people. A box cutter, you know, it's a small blade, retractable blade, and they're not very steady either. You know, And then in another confession, he said he shot them. Well, we know they weren't shot. He said he essayed them, and as far as we know, they weren't essayed. So where's this information that only the killer would know? Where is it? Anyway, the phone. Let's talk about the phone. So let's read this article. All right. A cell phone belonging to one of the Delphi murder victims will likely play a key role in their accused killer's forthcoming trial, two experts say. Okay, cool. Richard Allen, 51-year-old married father, was arrested and charged with the murders of Liberty German, 14, and Abigail Williams, 13, in November of 2022. It was actually October. It's the end of October 2022. So, you're wrong already, the Sun. Libby and Abby were abducted and murdered while hiking along a trail in Delphi, Indiana in February 2017. So, the prosecution's case is that Libby took a video. We've all seen it. The BG video, the Bridge Guy video. That's 2:13. That started at 2:13 and lasted for 43 seconds. We've only seen 2 or 3 seconds of it, you know, guys down the hill. And we don't know whether the guys and the down the hill were said as one phrase, or whether, because originally, if you remember back in Delphi in the case in the early days, all we heard was down the hill. Down the hill. And then in 2019, they added guys, as if that's going to make any difference to anybody identifying BG from his voice. We also don't know whether the man walking on the bridge and the spoken words, guys down the hill, are actually from the same person. We've never been told, really, that they're from the same person. We can assume that they are from the same person, but we don't know for sure whether Libby's, filming the guy walking towards them on the bridge, but then there could be someone else behind him saying guys down the hill. How do we know? How do we know? Jazia, he'd already seen his discovery when he confessed. Of course, he knew the things about the crime. Yeah, now I said that in a video, but the timeline of when he started to become psychotic and when he actually got his discovery, it's a bit contentious, because what came first? Did his mental health start to decline and then he was given his discovery? Or was he given his discovery first and then his mental health started to climb? Which way around is it? Does it matter? Well, it matters in so much as, well, for two reasons. Firstly, the pro-prosecution people are saying, oh, yeah, well, he started to confess once he'd read his discovery, and his mental health got bad when he read his discovery because he knew that his goose had been cooked. However, you can look at it another way, that he was already declining in his mental health, then he was given his discovery, he read some items in his discovery, and that fed into his psychotic behaviour. I think the latter, but we don't know exactly what day Richard Allen could have been deemed psychotic, where it's gone from being depressed to being in a psychosis. What day did that happen? Was it gradual? Some people gradually descend into psychosis. Some people, it hits them like a wall. It's not clear which came first. Absolutely, Chris. It's not clear which came first. So it doesn't matter, really, except for those two things. One's kind of a pro-prosecution argument, and the other's more of a pro-defense argument. Or at least it's a more open, I guess, argument. All right, so we got BG video at 2:13. Then we heard at the hearings that there was no more steps taken from Libby's health app. So Libby had an iPhone. I believe it was an iPhone 6. Now, I had an iPhone 6. I've still got an iPhone 6. It's in my old phones drawer, if I had a drawer for old phones, but it's in my house somewhere. I had an iPhone 6 at one time. And iPhone 6s were great. They were very thin. I really like the feel of the iPhone 6. They're really thin and easy to tuck into places. Anyhow, Apple iPhones have an inbuilt health app on them. You don't have to download it. I don't even think you can get rid of it fully. And it records your steps, and it's part of the phone. You don't have to be connected to the internet or to a cell tower for the health app to work, right? You can turn, you can put your phone on airplane mode. You can disable all your data, disable your Wi-Fi, disable your data, and your health app will still work. So it will still record steps, even if there's no signal at all. So, and I have tested this. I have tested this on my iPhone because it's not relying, it's inbuilt into the phone itself. So according to Nick, the phone stopped recording steps at 2:32. So this is where Nick's getting his timeline from, that the girls were most probably murdered and in their final position by 2:32. Because there's no more steps recorded. However, steps are not recorded when the phone is moving in, let's say, for example, a vehicle. Fun fact, my phone used to record steps when I used to go on the train to work, because some of the trains here in Northern England are very bumpy, like the carriages are very old and it's very bumpy, and it actually used to record steps when I was on the train. So even though I was sitting down, I don't know, it must have been the movement, the bumping on the rails that it recorded steps. So, but traveling in a car, like a smooth journey, it's not going to record steps. So the question will be, well, all right, if Libby was murdered by 2:32, or at least in the phone was in its final position where it was found by 2:32, that's why it didn't record any more steps. But I'll come back to that when we talk about 4:33, because 4:33 is very important. And we've got some gifted memberships here. Let's have a look here. Hold on a minute. Hold on. And we've got Vivian, member for 23 months. You're almost an OG. Feel so bad for the families. I know. It's a shambles. It's an absolute shambles. I just can't imagine how the families feel. And it's the wonderful Purple AJ hopping in there with 10 gifted memberships once again. So we've got Rexy, Charlie, Ann, Maz, Andrea, Puff Pass. I read that as Pitbull then. Puff Pass. We've got Shaddy for Life. We've got Anya. Let's have a look. Can I go down? Yes, I can. I need to get a mouse. All signs say yes. Ali and Kimberly. So welcome everybody. You get a month's free membership courtesy of the amazing Purple AJ. Enjoy. I'm coming on to that. Mr. Potato Head. I'm coming on to that. Moving the phone to a car and then out of a car would record steps. I'm coming on to that because that's one of my problems with this whole thing. Now, if you turn your phone off, completely off, it will not record steps. Because even though it doesn't have to have a signal, because it's inbuilt, like the pedometer bit is inbuilt into the phone. If you turn the phone off, so nothing is working, then it won't record any steps. So the only way for it not to record steps, if, let's say, for example, the girls were taken and then brought back and then murdered, like sometime in the night, that phone had to be off for no steps to have been recorded. But why did they turn the phone back on again? But I've gone ahead of myself. We'll talk about that in a bit. But anyway, so Abby and Libby were abducted and they were found almost 24 hours later. So it was about, I think it was just after midday that the bodies were found by searchers. While limited information has been shared about the girls' manner of death, we know the manner of death. It was homicide. What are you talking about? Both of their throats were cut and their bodies were found covered with branches. Alan was snared by police more than 5 years later when an unspent 40 caliber bullet discovered between Abby and Libby's bodies were allegedly traced back to the pistol he owns. Okay, so that's one issue. Again, it will come down to battle of the experts, ballistics and phone data. I think that will be it. I think that's what the trial will hinge on. Battle of the experts. In police interviews, Alan admitted to being in the same area as the girls when they were killed, wearing an outfit nearly identical to that of a man captured by Libby on video, warning her and Abby to go down the hill. The other thing that's is problematic for the prosecution is the timing that Richard Allen said he was there. because in 2017, when Rick came forward and spoke to Dan Dullard and, you know, just gave a brief witness statement, you know, he was there, saw some girls, you know, 3 girls. And then Dan Dullard, his only follow-up was, who were the 3 girls? Well, they found the girls, were actually 4 girls. But Dan didn't, made a few notes, which we've seen that in the PCA, but he didn't record. He didn't record that witness interview. So we've got to just believe Dan when he said Richard told him that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30. We've got to just believe it because it was never recorded. And then in 2022, 5 years later, Rick said no, he was there between about 12:30 and 1:30. So he was actually leaving about 1:30 rather than arriving. And if he was leaving at 1:30, well, he left way before the murders took place. So yes, he was there, but he was there at the wrong time. So that's a problem for the prosecution because there's no proof of what Rick said in 2017. So that's another way I think that the timeline can be attacked easily. Because, well, if Rick wasn't there, and what if Rick's phone wasn't even there? If Rick's phone wasn't there, like it was maybe there earlier and then it wasn't there in the afternoon, how are they going to handle that? Because we haven't heard anything about Rick's phone. We haven't heard of anything, a thing about Rick's phone, other than what he said, that he was watching a stock ticker on his phone. Did Rick know Dan Dullin? I call him Dan Dullard. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Wasn't the bullet in the ground for 2 weeks? No, I think it was found in the first few days. And there's another thing about the bullet. There's another thing that there appears to be a loss of chain of custody. So there's pictures of the bullet in the ground. So how did it even get in the ground? Did somebody stand on it? Somebody must have stood on it to, you know, dig it into the ground. Because if it was just ejected, then it would be on the ground, unless someone stood on it by accident, maybe during the murders, maybe, possibly, and that, you know, bedded it in a little bit. But there's a picture of it in the ground, and then there's nothing until there's pictures of it in the lab. So where's the pictures of it being taken, being measured, all of the things that are done at the scene? Where's those pictures? So it's a problem. That bullet's a big problem for me. That bullet's a problem. Anyway, much of the evidence in the case remains under seal in a strict gag order in place, barring lawyers and family members from speaking to the press. But during a 3-day pre-trial hearing last week, an abundance of new evidence and shocking details were shared for the first time. Investigators shared their belief that Libby and Abby were abducted at 2:14 on February 13th and killed somewhere between 2:30 and 3:30. And it is the first time that Nick has actually said that. I mean, we've kind of deduced it from the PCA. We've deduced that that will be the time. But, you know, that's actually come from Nick's mouth. So it's based on the steps. It's based on the phone. It's based on the fact that there was no steps recorded on the phone after 2:32. And then this problematic sighting of somebody that the prosecution believe is Rick walking on County Road North at 3:57. But we've got no idea whether that's Rick or not. Could be anybody. Because people were starting to gather to look for Abby and Libby at that time. Okay, the timeline part was put together by data gleaned from Libby's iPhone 6S, the same device she used to capture the chilling footage of her killer. Indiana State Police Sergeant Chris Cecil testified that all movement on Libby's phone stopped at 2:32 p.m. It never moved again, Cecil testified, nor did any text messages to Libby's phone come through. Now, this is the problem. This is the problem that the prosecution has here. However, Alan's defense team argues that Libby's phone turned on at 4:33 a.m. So this is the following morning on the 14th of February, pinged a nearby tower and received more than a dozen text messages. There were actually 15, but one of them, there was something to do with one of them. I've got Yellow Jacket's notes here. So Yellow Jacket was in the courtroom. These are her handwritten notes that she kindly put on Reddit. So it's the state witness. State calls Christopher Cecil. So Chris Cecil is an Indiana State Police sergeant, and he's been there for 20 years. And he did an extraction on Libby's phone in 2019 and another in 2024. So why is the prosecution still investigating Libby's phone in 2024? So we know the BG stuff. So this is where this information is coming from. Although we've got a glimpse in one of the pre-trial motions, I forget which one, where the defense and Nick were having a back and forward in writing about the geofencing. So we knew there was potentially an issue with this phone. Potentially an issue with this phone. So that's the stuff about the Apple Health data. The defense questioned whether they'd actually measured the number of steps. So, so if Libby's phone ceased to record any steps from 2:32, surely they will have measured, like, you know, done some experiments, you know, looked at, because not only can you look at the overall number of steps, you can tell in which hour it's from as well. So it doesn't give you the minute, but it'll tell you which hour it was from. So it will tell you how many steps were taken between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Right, so Libby and Abby were dropped off at 1:49. So all of the steps that were taken between 2 p.m. and 2:32 p.m. when it stopped recording steps were taken on the trails. So why have they not done experiments? Because according to Chris Cecil, it appears that they haven't done this, that they've done tests on how many steps it takes from where Libby and Abby were dropped off to the bridge, and then from over the bridge. I mean, they can't do it now because you can't get like all across the bridge. This should have been done years ago. They can't do it now because like half of the bridge has been repaired, and then like on the north side of the bridge you can walk on, and then it's like stopped. It's like safety rails now, and you can't get all across the bridge anymore. So it's not like somebody could come and do this experiment right now. The fact that it hasn't been done previously is a problem, because it now can't be done at all, because you can't get through the safety rails to walk all across the bridge to see how many steps it would take to go across the bridge and then down the route that they believed the girls were taken, which was across the creek. because the girls were on the south side. So down the hill means taking them down the south side, across the creek, back up the north side, and then they're murdered on the bank, like, you know, a little way up the bank on the north side. So the number of steps that takes is going to be considerably more than if the girls were taken to the south side and then put in a car, like on the south side. So the fact that hasn't been done is a problem. So according to Chris Cecil, you know, number of steps to drive possible hasn't measured steps, just movement. Don't know which go carrying. I don't know what that means. Distance traveled accurate as number of steps. He won't commit to that. So this is the problem, you know, dealing with other people's notes. I mean, it's very detailed, but it's that nuance that's important. But as far as I can gather, those really important experiments haven't been done. Approximately how many steps would it take to go across the bridge, down the hill, across the creek, and then to the crime scene? Anyhow, let's get back to this 433. 433. Where is it in these notes? Okay, right. Keep that there for a second. All right. So Alan's defense team argues Libby's phone turned back on at 4:33. So they were pinging it every 15 minutes, like the cops were pinging it every 15 minutes to try to get you know, where is the phone? If we can find the phone, surely the phone will be with the girls. So they were pinging this phone, and all they were getting from about 5 o'clock-ish were historical pings. So the phone was either off or it was out of range of that particular tower in Delphi, right? So it's either been turned off. If it's still in Delphi, it's been turned off because it's not registering with the tower at all. And this is very important to get in your head. It wasn't registering with the tower in Delphi at all. From 5 o'clock until 4:33 the following day. And then magically it turns back on. And the reason why we know it was off and is because if it was on, so if it had remained on and it had been taken somewhere else, so it would be pinging off another tower, so taken out of Delphi, so it would be pinging off another tower, those text messages would have come in like as and when they were sent, right? So it doesn't matter what tower it's pinging off, those messages would still be coming in. Do you see what I'm saying? The safety rails can be stepped over. You can still walk the full bridge. Is it safe though? Well, let's get the cops to do it. Let's not try. Nobody tried to do it themselves. Let the cops do it. So yeah, iPhone 6s definitely have the health app. I've got an iPhone 6. I could go and, if I could find it. I know it's in the house somewhere. I'll show you. The iPhone 6 does have health data. All right. So the phone had to be off. The phone had to be off. Because if it was elsewhere, let's say the phone had been taken to Logansport or taken to Indianapolis or taken to somewhere else outside of Delphi, those text messages would have come in as they were sent. The fact that it was turned back on at 4:33 isn't that the phone came back to the Delphi tower at 4:33. It had to be switched back on at 4:33 because all those text messages came in at once. So there was a ping off the tower. There was a ping off the tower at 4:33 and 15 text messages came in the same minute. So one of them, they're doubtful about whether it was a genuine text message, but so let's say 14 text messages came in 1 minute. So those are the messages that have been sent in the hours previous, you know, like family members saying, where are you? And blah, 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 that kind of thing. And none of them came through. So that phone was switched back on at 4:33. It wasn't that that phone was elsewhere around and still on, because those text messages would have come in. So if the girls were taken, somebody turned that phone off. And then when they were brought back, somebody turned that phone back on. That's the only explanation I've got. I don't know how to feel about that, other than that phone had to be off and then switched back on for all of those text messages to come in all at once. Now, how on earth is the prosecution going to play that? But anyway, let's carry on this. The defence argued this was due to the phone and possibly the girls themselves being moved to another location and then brought back to where they were ultimately found dead on February 14th. Investigators discovered Libby's phone beneath her body. It was actually beneath Abby's body, I think. So it was under a shoe and then under Abby's body. So the phone, why would somebody take the phone, leave the girls murdered, take the phone, and then bring the phone back and put it under Abby's body? Turn it on and then put it under Abby's body. Why? Why would you do that? Because if that phone was turned back on at 4:33, somebody turned that phone on at 4:33. So who was there at 4:33 a.m.? Who was there to turn that phone back on? Did the girls die instantly? Doubtful, no. They had their throat slits, and right, wouldn't have been instant. Could the girls have turned it off so the killer didn't know they had it and then turned it on again? No, because the girls weren't. No, not if they were murdered between 2:30 and 3:30 in the PM on the 13th, because we're talking about 4:33 a.m. the following day. So if the girls were murdered between 2:30 and 3:30, how on earth could one of them turn the phone back on at 4:33 a.m. the following day? So no, absolutely not. Not based on the prosecution's timeline. This is why the timeline is so easy to attack. So easy to attack. One of the searchers. Yeah, but they weren't found until midday or just after midday on the 14th. So who was there at 4:33 a.m.? Not only to turn the phone on, but to place the phone underneath one of the girls. Could the phone have been turned on by body movement settings? No. No, because the turn on button is on the side. The power button's on the side. So how would a body have turned it off, and then how would the body turn it back on again?
because you have to press the power button in on an iPhone. You have to press the power button in for several seconds for it to come on, for it to, you know, fire up. So no, it's not just movement that's caused it. It can't be a searcher because the girls weren't found until at midday the following day, midday on the 14th. So if somebody had found them, if somebody had found the bodies at 4:33, why would they turn the phone on? Like, it doesn't make sense for a searcher. Yeah, you have to press it and hold it in for a few seconds, and then you get the Apple icon. You have to hold the button in until the Apple icon appears. So it's maybe 5 seconds. Or I've never tested how many seconds it is, but it's a couple of seconds. So no, a dead body wouldn't have done it accidentally. Absolutely not. No, there's no butt dialing here. All of that butt dialing in the Karen Reid trial, come on. If I was a jury member, that on itself would give me reasonable doubt. One theory somebody came with, which is worth considering, is if the phone got wet. So the phone got wet and turned itself off because it was wet, and then several hours later, once it had dried sufficiently, then it turned itself on. But I've never tested it, and I'm not going to test it because I'm not ruining a phone by like wading through a creek with it and then waiting to see whether it's going to come on by itself like several hours later. Find fingerprints on phone. Well, we don't know that any fingerprints were ever lifted from the phone. We don't know the answer to that. It's a good question. We don't know the answer to that. Why was one of the girls wearing her friend's clothes? Again, we don't know the answer to that. All right. So, Alan's attorneys say the evidence supports their theory that a group of men with ties to the pagan Norse cult of Odinism killed Abby and Libby and not Alan. They suggested the girls may have been killed elsewhere and the crime scene staged, which would have been too difficult for Alan to pull off alone. Look, I think that somebody could have done that on their own. I think they could have done it on their own, but if the prosecution want to say that Richard Allen snuck back to the crime scene at 4:33 a.m. just to turn the phone back on, I'm sorry, I've got a problem believing that. Now, that's not what the prosecution have said so far, but if they make that argument at trial, then I'm sorry, I'm just going to laugh. Why would he sneak back just to turn the phone back on? Why? No one would sneak back to a crime scene just to turn the phone back on. You thought Richard Allen was searching? No, not as far as we've been told. I don't think Richard was involved in the searching. Not as far as I know, anyway. Prosecutors, meanwhile, argued that Libby's phone data is not so clear-cut. How the phone suddenly began receiving messages again more than 12 hours after the girls were killed is currently under investigation, and the device is being subject to new tests. Cecil said data extraction technology is better now than it was in 2019, which was the last time Libby's phone was forensically examined. And then we get the absolute phone experts, the number one leading phone experts in the world, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenley, aka the Murder Sheet. They pop up in every they crop up in every single media piece about this case. This is why I avoided the mainstream media after those hearings. Anya Kane and Kevin Greenley, the Murder Sheet, told the US Sun the phone could play a central role in Alan's trial.
which is slated to begin on October 14th. I believe it's October 15th. So Greenlee and Kane say, oh, it could play a central role. Yeah, it could, but explain. Come on, Anya and Kevin, explain how a phone could turn itself back on at 4:33 a.m. the day after the girls were allegedly murdered. Tell me how, Kevin and Anya. Don't say it play a central role. Tell me. Describing testimony about the phone so far as confusing, Greenlee said. The data debate will come down to a battle of witnesses. I think that's probably the truest thing he's ever said. The most sensible thing he's ever said. I think it will. Kane, meanwhile, described the defence's version of events as far-fetched. Okay, Anya, you smug little devil, tell me how the phone switched itself back on at 4:33. Tell me that. If you can explain that to me, then I'm happy to hear you out. She said, what the defense is contending sort of speaks to someone turning the phone back on hours after the girls were abducted. That's exactly what it, based on the information we've got right now, that's exactly what it's telling us. But what was interesting was Cecil mentioning there's a new report coming out because phone data extraction techniques improve all the time. So you can keep going back to check for more information. He's working on that report now. So I imagine the difference is going to be that the defense will claim the phone was turned back on. And that's the only way the messages could have come through. It is, though. Can somebody tell me another way that all of those phones, if the phone was on the whole time and in Delphi the whole time, how come 14 text messages came through all at the same time at 4:33 a.m.? Tell me how that happened. Tell me how that happened. The prosecution will be saying it wasn't turned on, and this can happen for several reasons. How? How then? How can, if the phone wasn't turned on, if the phone wasn't turned back on, how did it happen? Someone said that the phone got a surge of life before it died because it was dead and it died again. All right, then. Okay. I've never seen that happen. Do phones get a last-ditch effort to stay alive? Is that what happens? Like when your phone's on 1%? Does it suddenly, in its last breaths before it reaches zero, does it have a little surge of power? Really bad signal. Then it got a bit. Possibly. But why? Why did it suddenly get a bit of signal at 4:33? Like, it wasn't registering at all for hours, and then suddenly at 4:33, it gets a ping on the tower, like a new ping, not a historical ping, a new ping, and then 14 messages come through. I can't speak for any side in this, but it's probably going to come down to whose expert is more convincing. I think it will. So that's Christopher Cecil. So these are the questions that he was asked, according to Yellow Jacket's notes. So Christopher says he doesn't know that much about cell towers. All right. So we've got the state bringing a witness to talk about the phone. And then the witness says that he doesn't know very much about cell towers. You're not much of a witness then, are you? Because the entire testimony regarding the phone hinges on the witness having a knowledge about cell towers. Okay. Was Libby's phone on Wi-Fi between 5:30 p.m. and 4:33 a.m.? No. If not Wi-Fi, must be tower. Must be tower, right? Yeah, absolutely. So if your phone doesn't have any Wi-Fi, if it can't connect to any Wi-Fi router, then it relies on a cell tower, like 4G, 5G, whatever is available in the area. Right? May have even been 3G back in 2017. So again, if the phone was on the whole time, it would have been surely connecting to the tower the whole time. So why did it suddenly, like, not moving? It's not moved. It's not moved for, according to the state's timeline, for what, 14 hours at this point. So it hasn't moved from 2:32 p.m. That's when the last steps were recorded. So for 14 hours, it lies dormant. Now, for some of those hours, up to like, I don't know, 5 o'clock, 5:30, they were getting activation from it. There was some activation in it. And then from 5:30, whatever, all the pings that they sent to this phone were all historical pings that came back. They're all historical pings. So essentially, the phone is either off or it's out of range of that tower. All right. So if a phone does not move for 14 hours and then suddenly it gets 14 messages pinging through all at once, I find that unlikely. It's down to just a signal. Like suddenly it got enough signal to be able to, download 14 messages. All right. Okay. So Libby's phone received 4:06 on 13th. So that must have been the last time it received anything. 4:06. And then the next time it received something was 4:33. So 12 hours, 12 and a half hours. So it sat there for 12 and a half hours, completely dormant. This is what the prosecution wants us to believe. Completely dormant, even though people were texting them. Even though people were, texting Libby's phone saying, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And that phone was either out of range of that tower or it was off. So who either brought it back or turned it back on? Now, if no more steps were recorded, then I don't think it was on the whole time and someone brought it back, or else it would have recorded steps, because you can't drive to the crime scene. You have to walk to the crime scene. You have to either park on the north side and then walk through, the cemetery area or through Ron Logan's land to get to the crime scene, or down the trails and then across the crime scene. So that's going to record quite a few steps. So that phone had to have been off until it was repositioned back at the crime scene. Could it be the killer or killers returned to the scene and fiddle with the phone? Or someone who knew what was going to happen to the girls went to the location and fiddled with the phone? Yeah, but why would they? This is the thing. Who would have turned that phone back on? Now, somebody, I can't remember who it was, but it was someone in my comments said, what if the killer or killers turned the phone back on because at that point they were done with the girls and they wanted the girls to be found? So they turned the phone on so that the phone could be pinged and the location of the girls would be found. And that,
to me, is the most logical of explanations. That phone was turned back on purposefully so that the girls could be found. Risky to return to the scene. Well, it's even more risky to murder 2 girls in the middle of the day when there's people walking on those trails. And 2 teenagers were murdered and there's people on the trails. I mean, that's as risky as you can get, honestly. So Cecil looks at computer, confirms Libby's phone received 15 texts at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th. Cecil says some maybe something. I think it was one that they weren't sure was an actual text. Something Cellbrite extraction from 2017. Cecil says, I didn't do that report. So this is back in 2017. So there was a data extraction in 2017. Oh, a duplicate. So there was 2 texts that were the same. Okay. So there was a data extraction in 2017. Then Christopher Cecil came along and then did a data extraction again in 2019. And then has come back again and done another data extraction in 2024. Okay. Cecil says one isn't parsing. Okay, so that's to do with the text that was an issue. So it received at least 14 at 4:33 a.m. Yes. So we can confirm, according to the state's own witness, that 14 text messages came in to Libby's phone at 4:33 a.m. on February the 14th. So we've got 14 confirmed by the state's own witness. Last message on 2:13 received on Libby's phone, question 1048 from 2017. But then we've got exhibit TTT shows 2019. This is Cecil's extraction, that it was 5:33. Okay. So Guy in 2017 would have brought it in from iCloud. So the 2017 one wasn't accurate. So we're going off this one, 5:33. So the last content, the last communication Libby's phone had with the cell tower was 5:33 p.m. question mark. Now it's a 4:06 up here. So who knows? But it certainly wasn't, it was like the late afternoon of the 13th of February when the last communication with the cell tower. So they can argue about the specifics, but it was hours and hours and hours. It could be 12 hours, it could be 11 hours, that there was no communication from that phone at all to that cell tower. Make it make sense. Unless that phone was switched off and then someone turned it back on at 4:33 a.m. Who? Because if you can answer that question, it points you right to the killer. Surely it does. So do we have fingerprint analysis on the power button on Libby's phone? Do we have DNA analysis, touch DNA or anything like that? No, 2017, the DNA technology, yes, it was good, but it wasn't great. So is that phone still, I mean, it's gone through many hands now. It's gone through many hands, many tests. Is it still doable for DNA analysis to be done on that phone? I doubt it after all this time, but if it's been kept clean, if people have handled it only with gloves and it's been kept, you know, kept locked down the rest of the time, then it's possible that DNA analysis could still be done on that phone because somebody had to turn it off and then someone had to turn it back on again. So was that done? Because in my opinion, who handled that phone last? Who handled that phone last? Given that it had to have been turned back on at 4:33 a.m., that, in my opinion, leads you to the killer. You bet the killer wore gloves. Well, if that's the case, I mean, look, why was there not? Why is there no DNA from Richard Allen at the scene? Why? I mean, that's just, if they had Richard Allen's DNA at the scene on one or both of the bodies, I would say it's a fair cop gov. Whatever you say, whatever the anomalies, if Richard Allen does not know these girls and Richard Allen's DNA is right there at the crime scene, that's way more convincing, that's way more compelling, way more incriminating than one unspent round and nothing else. So where's Richard Allen's DNA at the scene? Anywhere at the scene, on the girls, on the tree, you know, where they F or upside down L or whatever, blood was on the tree. You know it's Libby's blood. But where's Richard Allen's DNA? On the phone, where is it? Then there was, at the hearing, there was this argument about Cecil saying that texts show up when they were sent. That's not true. They show up when they're received. Audible gasping room. So Cecil says texts show up when they are sent, not received via SMS or MMS. Audible gasping room. Yeah, because everyone knows that's nonsense. when your text comes in, right? It's when it's received to your phone. It shows up on your phone when your phone receives it. So if you do not have a signal or your phone's turned off, then the text message doesn't show up until you next have a signal or you next, you know, on a Wi-Fi router, and then your texts come in. So I think there was a misunderstanding there. Olga trying to, apparently that's not how you pronounce her name, or Auger, maybe, I don't know, but she's one of the defense. She's the new defense attorney, so she's working with Brad and Andy. So Auger trying to prove those texts were not sent at 4:33 but received at 4:33. Cecil jumps. Yes, I will agree. So if this is the best state witness they've got for, Lord help the prosecution. No, I'm not watching chat very often, I'm afraid. Would phone switch on if you call it from another phone? Phone's powered off, then you just get the busy sign, busy signal. So if your phone's completely off, like it's powered down, it's powered off, I can even prove it. I can, right, please hold. I'm going to go and get my phone, and I'm going to go and get another phone, another random phone. Kyle's gone out, so I can't just ask him to phone me. So I'm going to have to go and root out my old phone, but which I know where my most recent old phone is. So please hold 1 second. Please hold. Why is my please hold not working? Why is my please hold not working? Am I still with you? Can you still hear me? All right, I'm back. I don't know what happened with my please hold thing, but anyway. All right, I've got an old phone. So how do I know what number this is? Can somebody tell me how I find the number? So I'm gonna call. Oh, it's just come up. Do you want to add? Okay, I've got it. All right. Apple's brilliant. All right, so I'm gonna call this phone, this old phone, which is an iPhone 10. So you can hear the ringtone when I call it. All right. So, hold on. I don't normally make phone calls. I don't even know how to use my phone to make an actual phone call. Can't even see. Okay. Oh, I'm doing it on the wrong phone. That's not gonna. Oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Right.
The number you have called is not recognized.
Oh.
Please check the number and dial again.
The number I've called is not recognized for some reason. I don't know why. Hold on. Please hold. Right, I'm going to try it again. All right, holding it up. It should ring now.
Hear that? You all hear that? All right. So now you heard that ringtone, right? So that's with the phone switched on. Now I'm going to turn the phone off, completely off, and it's not going to ring. So I'm powering it off. All right. Now I'm going to try it again. The phone is off. So what's going to happen?
We're just setting your mailbox up. It won't be long. 0, 7, 8, 6, 1.
So it just tells me that I'm setting the mailbox because I've never used this number. This is an old phone with just like a random SIM card in it, just so that it will actually work. So the phone's off. It's not turned back on. Listen again.
Zero, 7, 8, 6, 1, 7, 9, 1, 4, 0, 4. Can't take your call right now. Just leave your message after the tone.
So it can't take the call. And anybody who got that phone number, it's a random SIM card. It's never switched on unless I need two phones to like record or something. Let's do it one more time. So you can take the number down. You can call it as many times as you want. You can spam it. It doesn't matter to me. It's not registered to anything. It's just a random SIM card. It's a burner SIM card. All right. So I've got loads of them because I'm a crime genius. All right. We're going to do it again.
0, 7, 8, 6, 1, 7, 9, 1, 4, 0, 4. Can't take your call right now. Just leave your message after the tone.
There you go. So it doesn't turn an iPhone back on, and you just get a busy tone. So there you go. So that experiment. It's Tilly's sniff SIM card. It's Cassie that does the searching. But yeah, she'd find your SIM card if you had a burner phone. She'd find it. So no, it's not that someone rang the phone and it turned the phone back on. All right. Okay. So if this guy Christopher Cecil is the best that that the state has, yeah. All right. Okay. I love these notes. Why didn't you just say that to Olga? Go. I think there was a misunderstanding because Auger question was a bit off, like a bit difficult to understand. And Gull says, "Why didn't you just say that?" Oh dear. Anyway, 2019. What do we know? Same as on news. I don't know what that means. He searched for data on 213. You see, the thing is, they've only searched the phone for the 13th. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. And then that's it. So yeah, so he is maybe going to be the phone expert at trial. And hopefully the defense have a better expert. Because I think this case will come down, the trial will come down to the battle of the experts. But in reality, there has to be an explanation for why all those text messages came in at 4:33 a.m. the day after the girls were murdered. If the prosecution's timeline is to work in any way, shape or form, they have to explain why those text messages came in at 4:33 a.m. Cecil is the trooper Paul of Indiana. Sorry if that was too close to the microphone. If anybody had earbuds in, that probably killed your ears. Yeah. Libby's phone was turned off around the time 2 of the 3 geofence phones left the scene. You see, this is the other issue that we've got a big problem with, and that's geofencing. Now, I think I've done at least one video, if not 2, on the problems with the geofencing, which Slick Nick says that geofencing is not to be believed, which is crazy for a prosecutor to say that. So in all future cases where Nicholas McClelland is the prosecutor, all the defence has to say is, well, in this case here, this here Delphi case, you said that geofencing was nonsense. So we've also got the geofencing, because there was numerous phones in that geofence that were very close to that crime scene, and it has not been explained who those phones belong to. What time were the girls found? Just after midday on the 14th. So, no, a creek there won't dry out without sunlight or heat. I'd be inclined to believe you, Jennifer, because it's not, the girls, like their bodies, by 4:33 a.m., if they were murdered between 2:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, by 4:33, their bodies would just be the temperature of, the outside environment. So they wouldn't be that phone wouldn't be getting any extra heat from the girls' bodies. I mean, there may be some residual trapped heat. It would be warmer under a body than it would be, in the air, but would it be sufficient to dry out a body? Dry out a phone, sorry, not dry out a body, dry out a phone. I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not going to try it. I'm not going to purposefully immerse a phone, even if it's an old phone, because you never know when you might need a burner phone. I'm not going to immerse it to the point where it powers off, because phones are water resistant. If you walk through a creek and your phone gets wet, they are water resistant. They're not waterproof, but they are water resistant. So the chances are it wouldn't have completely powered down the phone anyway. Did anybody see the shooting stars last night? No, I didn't. Are we still talking about? All I did was call and let it ring forever, and it turned my phone right on. Yeah, if your screen's off. Yeah, if your screen's off, but not if your phone's actually powered off. There's a difference between your screen being off, so your screen being asleep, and your phone being completely powered off. If you totally power off your phone and then try to ring it, it won't ring. It won't ring.
and it won't turn your phone back on. Burner phones are not allowed in Norway. Well, how can they stop you having a burner phone? Like, does somebody come round checking your phone? I can't imagine that's a law that can be... How can they even police that? Yeah, if your phone is off, completely off, nothing on it is working. So you've got to turn it, like completely power it off and then ring it, and it will not ring. No, you can't power another phone on remotely, no. No, you can't. Not on an iPhone. I mean, you might be able to on other phones, but not on an iPhone, no. The operating system on Apple products, we're not talking about cheap Microsoft shit here. We're talking about, you know, proper operating systems. You can't turn an iPhone on remotely. You absolutely can't. I mean, somebody try. Like, if you took down the number on this burner phone that I just rang before, it's off now, completely powered down. Somebody tried to turn it on. I'll give you permission to turn it on. Go. You're not going to be able to. Phones are not sold everywhere in Norway. Sellers have to report all sales. That doesn't mean to say you can't have a burner phone, though. Like, do they take do they take your ID? That's very Big Brother. Oh, you have to register with ID for it to work. Oh my God. All SIM cards must be registered to a person and address here in South Africa. Really? Maybe that's coming in. Maybe I'm going to have to stack up on, like, SIM cards. You can just get them anywhere. You just get them like supermarkets. You can just get them like free, completely free. Or maybe they do charge now. You have to have a social security number. That's insane. Yeah, burner's just a prepaid phone. It's not that shady. Yeah. You don't use cash either. People look at you weird if you want to play physical money. Wow. I'm learning something new. Not allowed a burner phone in Norway. Wow. So what? It rings and rings to the caller, then powers on the phone to allow remote access. Yeah, the person who's calling, it's going to, if you're calling on your phone's got to be on. But it won't turn the phone on. If the phone that you are calling is off, it won't turn it on. I don't really understand what. Elvis is in the building.
That's not Elvis Fields, is it? I know, all right. I mean, how can you scare? I mean, maybe you can scare them into silence, but when they're being stabbed, how are they not screaming? Didn't Abby stay alive longer? Did she try to turn it on to get help, but not strong enough to continue with her efforts? Yeah, but who turned it off? Then it would mean that somebody would have had to turn it off. And then it would have meant that Abby would have had to be alive until 4:33 a.m. You see, the issue is they charge you £1 now for a sim. Oh my word. You used to be able to get them free. Did Richard Allen match ancestral DNA? I don't know what you mean by that. Richard Allen's DNA was not at the scene. I'm quite sure that if they'd found Richard Allen's DNA at the scene, we would know about it. Nick would be dying to tell us all. He'd have it in every single motion that he writes. Cash is king. Yeah, so if you've got a Samsung phone, you can't turn another phone on with your phone, though. Like, try to turn my phone on right now. You're not going to be able to do it. You can ring this phone until you're blue in the face, and you're not going to be able to turn it on with any phone. So it's not about the caller's phone, it's about the person that you're calling. You're not going to be able to call this phone or any phone that's powered down and for it to turn back on again. There you go. Yeah, it's easy to it's easy to get around anything. I can imagine that's going to come in here at some point. Things are getting more. Dog's name is Elvis. That's good. What is the story about Elvis Fields? All right, so he confessed to his sister. So this would have been the morning of the 14th. So before the girls were even found, he told his sister that he was with the girls, like the murder girls. He was on the bridge with the murder girls, and he tried to give his sister a blue coat, which allegedly had blood on it. Now, I can't confirm whether or not the coat had blood on it, but he tried to give his sister his coat. And he told another sister, or it may have been the same sister, but he told one of his sisters anyway that he would be going away for a long time. And but he's got brothers now or something to that effect. And then he told Kevin Murphy, is his name Kevin Murphy? Agent Murphy, anyway, who was one of the officers who was investigating the Odinist angle. He said
that would it be okay if he could explain why his DNA was there at the scene? Like, he spit on one of, he said he spit on one of the girls, but would it be okay if he could explain that? Call Apple support, talk to a tech, ask them if an iPhone has remote access. Yeah, you can. Well, you might be able to use a remote access app to, you know, access certain other things on your phone, but another phone cannot turn your phone on. It can't be done. Elvis feels where is he now? I don't know. No idea where he is now. No idea. Yeah, walking around free. I mean, if anybody needs to be interrogated to within an inch of his life, it's Elvis Fields. I can't understand why Elvis Fields was just let go. I don't understand it, because he doesn't have an alibi, because the alibi that he gave is meaningless, is a clear lie. So, and just because he lives like in Rushville doesn't mean anything. I think if the Odinists did it, and this is a big if, I think Holder arranged it by making Abby believe that they were going to meet Logan, because that was her boyfriend at the time. So I think Holder arranged it, and then other people carried it out. Now, the people who do not have alibis for the 13th are Elvis Fields, Patrick Westfall. I don't know about Johnny Messer. But I know for sure Elvis Fields and Patrick Westfall do not have alibis. Their alibis are nonsense, total nonsense. So why is Elvis Fields still walking around? Work records are claimed to be submitted for Johnny Messer. Yeah, I'm not sure about Johnny Messer. I'm not sure about him. And there's also Ned Abrams as well. I'm also not sure about him. I'm not sure about him. I mean, there could be other people involved that even Brad and Andy don't know about, that are, you know, have skated under the radar, and Brad and Andy don't know about. Brad and Andy are not required to solve this crime. Let's be very clear. They're not required to solve this crime. And I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of this live. Putting on a third-party guilt defense is risky. It's really risky. Because if the jury, like en masse, as a collective, think that the theory is too incredulous, even if it's got merit, it can't be proven and it's too incredulous, then they will vote to convict Richard Allen, because they want somebody to go down. Like, it's just your I don't know, sense of morality wants somebody to go down to answer for a double murder of two little girls. So if Allen's there on trial and the defense's counter theory isn't convincing enough or just seems too unbelievable, they will convict Richard Allen. They will. However, you know, the best they could hope for in that kind of case is a hung jury. They'd be in the same sticky situation that the Karen Reid trial's in right now. However, if you can completely tear down the timeline, you know, completely tear down the timeline, then the prosecution has got a big uphill battle to convince 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt that Richard Allen did it in the time frame that they are insisting on. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this thing right now. So it will be, I think it will be a very hard fought trial. It will be the battle of the experts. And unfortunately, we're not going to get to see it. I don't know. Can somebody make her change her mind? Audio only would be fine. I don't mind having not seeing the exhibits. Audio only would be fine. But we know that cell phone forensics prove Abbey photo at 2:07 did not come from LG's phone. The Abbey photo, I believe, was sent by Snapchat. So the pictures of it that we see are screenshots when, like, people screenshotted and then they've just got circulated. So it wasn't on Abbey. It wasn't on Libby's phone. It was Snapchat. So it's like people who picked up the Snapchat when the girls were missing have distributed them, and they've just got into like general circulation. That's what I believe anyway. Not that let's put it this way, I don't think it's a completely fabricated photo. But then again, it wasn't on Libby's phone, so I'm just making an assumption that people who got it from Snapchat, who then circulated it online, are all telling the truth. I don't see any reason why they would, like, en masse put out a fake photo so early on in the case. But anyhow, Heather Feather, I'm not attacking you, and I don't think people are attacking you purposefully. I think it's just it's not true. You can't turn a phone on by ringing it. It's just it's a healthy debate. And it isn't personal. It's just, it's not true. You can't turn a phone on by ringing it. You absolutely can't. You can turn a phone on, like if you ring a phone that the screen's off, the phone's on but the screen's off, and you ring it, then yeah, it comes to life. Did I see your message earlier, Onyx Angel? No, probably not. I've been dipping in and out of chat whilst I was talking. So no, I don't think I did see. How earlier was it? Like, was it recently early or a long time ago? But no, I can't see it now. Sorry. Oh, hold on a minute. Got it. All right. Okay, got it. So you can remotely control your other Apple devices with your iPhone. Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. That's not what we're saying, though. That's not what we're saying. Yeah, absolutely. You can. Your Apple devices will talk to each other. Absolutely.
But what you can't have is somebody else. The point is, somebody else, some other random person can't just come along, hack into your iPhone and take over it. Like, you have to be paid. It has to be in your devices to be able to do that. So I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting. I'm going to do it right now. Go to settings, accessibility. I've done this before anyway. So no, that's not the issue. That's not what we're arguing. Control nearby devices. Here we go. So it's searching. It's going to search. Now it should be able to find. Should be able to find 2 Apple computers. At the moment, it's not finding any. Even though it's right next door. It's actually touching. It's physically touching. So no, at the moment, it's not finding any of them. But yeah, in theory, absolutely, an Apple device can talk to another Apple device that's, you know, from the same user. It's logged into the same things. Like I can answer my phone calls and stuff from my computer. You know, they all talk to each other. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about some other like random person. Let's say the killer turned Libby's phone back on remotely. No, no, that didn't happen. Oh, thank you, R&M. Thank you so much for the $10. Motion brief filed in April by Indiana Media Court for access, which she of course denied. Seemed they were gearing up to file suit for access. Then nothing happened. Yeah. Well, let's just hope. Let's hope she has a change of heart. Let's do that. I'm not going to hold my breath, though. It's a long time to wait till October with bated breath, so I'm not going to. But thank you so much for the $10. That's very kind. It's very kind of you. If her phone was off, could it ping all over town? No, it wouldn't ping at all. If her phone was off, it would not ping at all. There would be, it's dead. It's not registering anywhere. If it's off, no, you can't ping anywhere. But if it's pinging in other places, other than off that Delphi tower, then we haven't been told that. Like formally, officially, we haven't been told that. Because the only tower that the pings were being sent from was the one in Delphi. And I believe there's 2, but I don't know whether there was 2 in 2017. I believe there's 2 towers now in Delphi. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Holder. Yeah, it went to the gym. Holder went to the gym in the middle of the night, didn't he? Saying that he was, I don't know what words he used. I've got the screenshot somewhere. Like he was all like pumped. He went to the gym twice. He went to the gym after work, then he went to the gym in the middle of the night.
all pumped up. Okay, all right. I've got weird sleeping patterns. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Somebody said that in my comments, and I think that's the most logical explanation why a killer or killers would turn a phone on. Like you'd turn the phone off if you didn't want it to be tracked, but then you'd turn the phone back on again once you were done with your victims so that they could be found, so that it would be easier to find them. That's the only explanation. So I will say again, if you find who last handled that phone, it takes you directly to the killer, in my opinion, because surely that phone had to be turned back on. Yeah, full of testosterone. Yeah, I wonder why. Full of testosterone. So that's my working theory at the moment. If it's the Holderness crew that did it, the Holder set it up, posing as Logan. The girls get there. They're met by Fields and Westfall, simply because they don't have alibis, or they don't have adequate alibis at least. And whoever else, I don't know who else. I don't know about Messer, I don't know about Abrams. And if it did happen in the afternoon, then Holder has an alibi because he was at work. But if Fields and Westfall took the girls away, like took them away alive, and then they brought them back later, still alive, to perform a ritual, then there's no reason at all why Holder can't have been there physically, because he only has an alibi for the afternoon. He doesn't have an alibi for after he left work, he went to the gym. He doesn't have an alibi for later in the day. That's my working theory. It's just a theory. Patrick Westfall can try to sue me if he wants. But yeah, all right, just a theory. And that's only if the Holderness did it. So anyway, I'm going to go. But that phone, man. And the geofencing as well. The geofencing. I wish they'd brought up like the geofencing and had a really good discussion about the geofencing with this, phone expert. Chris Cecil, the absolute genius that he is. Genius. Doesn't know about cell towers though, so doubt he'd know about geofencing either. Listen, I'm no expert. It's not my area of expertise whatsoever. I only know the basics. Same with the science into the ballistics. I only know the basics. And it tends to be, I do a little bit of research. If it comes up at a trial, I'll do a little bit of research on it. And then I instantly forget it, and I don't follow it up. And look, you can't be, I know about dogs. You can ask me about dog tracking, dog searching. I can give you as qualified an answer as I can on that. But things like tech, I know the basics. Ballistics, I know even less. But I did a little bit of research on ballistics when it was the Murdoch trial. A little bit. Realised that the science was contentious and kind of left it at that. So, thank you. Just got a super chat fly by then. Let me have a look. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okie dokie for the $10. Coffee, Sun and Lives. Living the life. That is living the life. Although I'm not a coffee fan. I prefer tea, but... All right, I'm going to go. Thank you all. So thank you for the donations. Welcome to the new members. Thank you as always, mods. And I don't think I'll be seeing you again until tomorrow, unless anything breaks in any of the cases that I'm following. But it's a very quiet day today, so I'm gonna go and chill. So enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.